We're also joined by Minister Nxesi, who is the Minister for Labour, and the Deputy Minister in the Presidency as well, Ms. Thembi Sweya. We also have Minister Lille, who is joining us virtually, and the first presentation we'll get will be from the Minister in the Presidency. We also have two of our colleagues from the Presidency who will also be part of the presenters here today. Minister Gungubele, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mhlauli. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Also welcoming my colleagues, Presidency, and various other staff members who might be here. And I reinforce the apology for late start. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present to you the overview of the Presidential Employment Stimulus. I would like to welcome you all to this briefing, which will focus on the two things. First, to reflect on what has been achieved in the first phase of the Presidential Employment Stimulus, and second, to outline our plans for the next phase. The Presidential Employment Stimulus was launched by the President in October 2020 in response to the devastating impact of the coronavirus pandemic on employment. It is a crucial pillar of the broader economic reconstruction and recovery plan. The employment stimulus has supported a portfolio of programs in three key areas: public employment interventions, livelihood support to sustain self-employment, and protecting existing jobs in the vulnerable sectors. The Presidential Employment Stimulus represents the most rapid expansion of the public employment in South Africa, in the South Africa's history, and has been implemented with unprecedented speed and scale. 11 national departments were responsible for implementing programs supported by the stimulus in phase 1, coordinated by the Presidency. This represented a new way of working across government to achieve a common objective. The main objective of the stimulus is to use public investment to create jobs rapidly and at a scale to provide support to those who need it most. In addition to creating jobs and supporting incomes, the stimulus aims to support local economic recovery by providing a wider stimulus for consumer spending in poor communities. It is important for us to note that employment recovery must ultimately be driven by growth in the private sector. Government is implementing a range of interventions, including structural reforms through Operation Vulindlela, to revive growth and support firms to create jobs. In the short term, however, public employment can provide meaningful work and stable income, whilst keeping people connected to the labor market and giving them skills to enhance their employability later on. More than 550,000 jobs and livelihood have been supported to date as part of the phase 1, with an overall target of 694,120 opportunities. Several programs are still in implementation, and we expect this number to increase further. This represents more than 500,000 South Africans who have already benefited directly from the stimulus, either through employment or by receiving a grant to sustain their own economic activities. The first phase of employment stimulus has provided valuable lessons for what we can achieve if we set our ambitions higher, if we forge strong partnerships with organizations across society, and if we work together across government. Phase 2 of the employment stimulus has now commenced, ladies and gentlemen, to be implemented with a total of 11 billion rand allocated by National Treasury. This will support the continuation of some programs from phase 1, as well as a range of new programs. The recruitment of 287,000 young people as school assistant is already underway, and participants will be placed in November. Phase 2 will include the establishment of a new social employment fund, which will support work for common good in communities provided by organizations outside of the state. Phase 2 will also support the presidential youth employment interventions, including establishment of the National Pathway Management Network, the revitalization of National Youth Service, and a new model of skills training for unemployed youth linked to the employment. Unemployment is the single greatest challenge that we must confront as society. The continued success of the employment stimulus reflects government's commitment to address this challenge and to support employment while the labor market recovers. Our other colleagues, I beg your pardon. The other colleagues, Minister Lille and Minister Nxesi, ladies and gentlemen, will further unpack the contribution of the presidential stimulus, of the presidential employment stimulus, to scale up the employment, and particularly youth employment. You will also receive, as stated by Ms. Mhlaule during the opening remarks, that there will be a technical presentation to follow. At this point in time, I want to hand over to Honorable Nxesi to make his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister in the Presidency, Minister Mondli Gungubele, the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Mrs. Patricial de Lille, the senior officials of the department, and all media representatives who are present today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. As government, we have been very consistent in our fight against unemployment, poverty, and inequality. We continue to resist and refuse any attempts to defocus us. We are steadfast and resolute in fighting unemployment, inequality, and the eradication of poverty, of course, in our lifetime. The President has championed the cause of the youth employment through the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, which was launched in February 2020, and through a number of programs which place the issue of the youth unemployment at the center of the economic policy, the economic stimulus, and the economic reconstruction and recovery program. This presidential employment stimulus supports a wide range of programs which are being implemented by the 15 national departments in phase 2. Many of the programs have an explicit focus on the youth, given the severity of the youth unemployment in South Africa. In phase 1, 84% of the participants across all programs, including the public employment and livelihood support, were young people below the age of 35. And 2/3 of all participants were women. Now, phase 2 of the employment stimulus is supporting the implementation of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, which aims to provide support and expand opportunities for young people who are unemployed. A total of 838 million has been allocated to this program as part of the overall budget for the stimulus. And as part of this intervention, the Department of Employment and Labour is leading the establishment of the National Pathway Management Network, which is also known as the South African Youth. This network allows young people to register and receive active support to find employment and aggregates opportunities from a wide range of partners within and even beyond the government. So the President officially launched the SA Youth on the 16th June 2021. Young people to access the network through the various channels, including the South African Youth Mobi platform, which has been zero-rated by all mobile operators and currently has more than 2 million people or 2 million young people who are registered. Young people can also access the network through the 126 labor centers as well as the NYDA centers across the country. In phase one, the employment stimulus, a total of 170,000 unemployed youth were placed in the various work opportunities through the Pathway Management Network, of which 406, they were placed as school assistants, and 2,000 were placed in the jobs in the global business services. The Pathway Management Network will provide an entry point for young people to access opportunities during phase two of the stimulus by registering their profile on the South African Youth Mobi. The Department of Employment and Labour is also establishing new innovation fund for partners of the Pathway Management Network, working together with the Jobs Fund. The Innovation Fund will identify and support innovation solutions to barriers faced by the young people in the labour market. Phase two of this stimulus will also support demand-led training as a new approach to skills development that links training to young people directly to jobs that are available. Finally, the stimulus will support the recruitment of 35,000 young people as part of a revitalized National Youth Service, which will be expanded further in future. We are encouraged by many private sector companies that are creating employment opportunities and call on many more of these companies, and big and small, which have not yet committed a number of jobs for young people to do so, because tackling youth unemployment requires all of us to play our part. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nxesi, Honorable Minister Nxesi. Shall we, on virtual, call upon Minister Lille to make a presentation? Minister?
Thank you, Minister, and good morning. Minister in the Presidency, Minister Gungubele, Minister Thulas, Minister of Labour and Employment. I also want to greet the head of the Project Management Office, Mr. Rudy Dix, and the program lead for the Presidential Employment Stimulus, Dr. Phillips, members of the media. Good morning. I'm very pleased to be part of the announcing the second phase of the Presidential Employment Stimulus, which is an addition to the Extended Public Works Program and also the Community Works Program, and builds on lesson learned from these programs. The Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, as we all know, was announced last year during COVID-19. Job creation initiatives such as these by government must also be complemented by initiatives by the private sector. As government, our role ultimately is to create the conditions conducive for economic private sector. The program, the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, has demonstrated also our capacity as government to take public employment and other forms of publicly funded support to a new scale, with the achievement of over 550,000 jobs and livelihood opportunities, and more still in implementation. As government, our employment efforts are also focused on ensuring that specific targets are set for the employment of women and youth and people with disabilities. Women are the backbone of many families across our country, and we also have many women single-headed households. For surveys show that the South African labor market is more favorable to men than it is to women. And COVID-19 has also exposed the fault lines in our economy, and many families, especially mothers, have struggled to put food on the table during this difficult time. So the program is therefore focused on ensuring that the work performed creates a real public value which can be seen and felt by the communities in which it takes place. So each program has fulfilled an important societal need, and many has left a lasting impact on our communities. In addition to providing overall support for the stimulus package, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure was able to expand its own employment programs and infrastructure with additional funding at phase 1. So as DPWI, we were able to employ graduates and various projects in our department as part of the program. And this included graduates that we employed for the Rural Bridge Project program, as well as artisans and professionals in facility management and waste management. So during the 2021 budget year, DPWI has recruited 1,886 graduates. The good news is that some of these graduates were able to find employment in the private sector. And this has been one of the noted successes of the program, as these graduates could now go into private sector jobs with some experience from the program. And for the current financial year, the department has recruited 1,496 beneficiaries, which comprises of 737 females, 559 males, and 98% youth in all 9 provinces. So these graduates that we've now recruited have been employed in the department's various regional offices to work on the Rural Bridge Program, facility management, waste management, and also just help with administration in general. So the urgency of delivery created a need also for innovation to reach scale, and this has included the use of digital platforms for recruitment and application processes that have enhanced transparency and accessibility. In conclusion, the Presidential Employment Stimulus has encouraged a real innovation in how we develop public employment programs across government, from how we recruit participants to the type of work that is supported. As government, we are determined to incorporate these lessons going forward to improve the impact of public employment across the board. I thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Minister Lille, for such an eloquent and elaborate presentation. Who starts? Is it Mr. Dix? The technical people now are going more elaborate and more on detail. Dix.
Thank you so much, Minister Gungubele, Minister Nxesi, Minister Delo, who have been exceptional in supporting the program, and that's always good to know. Just let me. What we will do is, in a sense, build a little bit more detail in giving you a sense of the achievements, because for us it's important to report back on what was committed. So when the President announced that, Minister Gungubele, in October, we took the arduous task of ensuring that there's adequate monitoring, adequate engagement with departments who have committed to it, 11 departments in phase 1, monthly meetings with the departments around that, and most of all, we created a public-facing dashboard, which is available on the website. I don't have the correct address right now, so we'll get it later on, Minister Gungubele. And that dashboard has been updated on a regular basis, and it, of course, reflects the numbers that we are just about to report. So, I see this thing. Let me just... okay. Sorry, this is just somewhere in the middle of the presentation and it doesn't start. So, let me just start off with a quote from the President, and I think this is very, very important. Perhaps Minister Gungubele, just to say, and he says, we will continue to support employment directly while the economy recovers. There's much more work to be done. The next phase of the employment stimulus is an opportunity to expand the reach and impact of our efforts, to experiment and to do things differently. It signals our commitment to support the most vulnerable and to provide work for those who need it. So that's an important quote, and I think Minister Gungubele, in his opening remarks, have made it fairly clear that what we're trying to do is innovate and support and enhance employment in an area that we have control on. But it's important to enhance and support the overall employment program that the private sector will drive. And that's going to be quite critical. Slide number 3. I think it's slide number 3. I've been told that I have to say the number of slides. So what is the overall employment stimulus? Just building on what Minister Gungubele had said. We have, to date, completed just over 551,000 against a target of 694. Of that, 84% of them were young people, and 58% of them were female, and we had a budget of 12.6 billion. Now that's important because even in the targets that we had set, we wanted to make sure that, again, that we admit up front that we've not reached the full target. But Minister Gungubele, as we've indicated, you have indicated that as we reconcile in phase 1, as we continue to implement some of the components, for example, the voucher system to support subsistence farmers in the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development and Land Reform, the Department of Social Development in supporting the ECD sectors, these numbers will continue to tick up and will be updated on the dashboard. So across the 3 pillars of the first phase, total jobs created were 393,713 against a target of 434,000. The livelihoods that we supported, we achieved 117,000 opportunities to support in the livelihoods program against a target of just under 200,000. And the amount of jobs we retained through the various programs was, we were able to achieve just over 40,000 jobs against a target of 60,000. So this is quite important for us to be able to show the level of achievements, 91% of the jobs created, 60% of the livelihood support, and 67%. And as I've indicated, this will continue to improve. Next slide, which is slide number 4. The flagship program, Minister Gungubele, was the the Basic Education Employment Initiative. And this is one of the most critical things, a very innovative thing. Minister Nxesi, we know that this is where you come from, and you were quite excited when we announced this program last year, and we set a target of 300,000 opportunities across all 22,000 schools. Now, there's never been a kind of program of this kind of nature where you have an intervention that cuts across every single local municipality, every single district, every single community, because schools are in all those particular areas. And that's been very, very important. So while we set a target of 300,000 for phase 1, we were able to achieve actually 320,000 young people at 22,000 schools. We reached every single corner, as I've said. So it has a spatial dimension to it. We were able to achieve an opportunity for these young people to be recruited in every single corner of our country. Significant number of schools that opted in were responsible for the recruitment, and though, as Minister Nxesi had pointed out, some of them were placed through the Pathway Management Network. We introduced, for the first time also, Minister Nxesi, a national minimum wage for these young people. So it wasn't simply an EPWP stipend, it wasn't simply a stipend to support for food, for meeting food needs, but an actual minimum wage at just over 3,500 rand. And the impact of that is quite significant. So it's not only young people being able to meet food needs, but it's about surviving, it's about spending within communities, supporting local economic development, and a whole lot of important areas. And this, of course, was supported by the teacher unions. So the teacher unions had bought into this and were quite happy with it. It created meaningful work experience, and that was quite important, and social value. And with a strong support from the non-state sector, we were able to roll out training for over 100,000 school assistants in this program, which included supporting foundation-based maths and home languages, IT skills, reading and literacy champions, child and youth care workers, janitors, and maintenance. So it's quite an important thing, and I mean, many critics would say, yeah, we're putting them into programs. Are we creating sustainable jobs? Are there pathways out of this? Are they skilled? And I think the impactfulness of this particular program has been very, very important. Next slide. So over and above the flagship program there, the kind of updates that we provide on the other interventions, and I won't go through this in a great amount of detail. Slide number 5. Is it slide number 5? Okay, slide number 5. Yeah. So again, just quickly summarizing some of the other programs that were implemented by the 10 other departments. As I've indicated, the Department of Rural Development, Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development supported over 53,000 subsistence farmers who received production vouchers to roll out and support interventions into different agricultural aspects. The Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment had supported over 35,000 people employed in environment programs that were augmenting existing programs, of course, and that's quite important. DSD and the Early Childhood program, quite a critical and impactful intervention. The numbers are still coming in, Minister Gungubele. There's a lot of interventions. We're trying to ensure that we up that numbers. But thus far, the ECD program have supported 32,000 practitioners in this particular space. Despite the NAC challenges, and this was, at some point in time in the media, and of course there was an audit report, we were able to still get interventions to support those in the arts and culture space, because that sort of livelihood was quite critical given the lockdown. And over 40,000 people in the arts and film and video sector were supported. The DTIC interventions was important to support young people who were working in the global business services, and we were able to retain those jobs. Over 10,000 of them were supported. Transport, we were able to support the continued interventions around the Rural Roads program, and more than 10,000 people were supported. Also, the same in the Department of Health to support, the interventions in response to the COVID pandemic. We supported a number of programs within the DSI, for example, and a graduate program there, as very similar to the one in DPWI, as Minister de Lille had reflected, just under 2,000. So this is in a sense the highlight of phase one, Minister Gungubele, and we were able to make quite a significant achievement, lots of lessons learned. We were able to ensure that we continue to work with departments, create a coordinated response from the presidency, ensure that the implementing departments are able to successfully implement, support them as we went along. So I think this is quite a useful reflection, and Dr. Kate Phillip will continue just to reflect a little bit more details, Minister, around the second phase of the program. Kate?
Thanks, Rudy. So, next slide. So, good morning all. I'm going to speak to phase two of the presidential employment stimulus. We've been through what many have described as a roller coaster. The first 5 months we hit over 500,000 people supported through the employment stimulus with a huge amount of effort and innovation from participating departments. And we're really excited now to be able to announce the portfolio for the second phase of this program. And in phase two, we have both continuity and change. So an allocation of 11 billion was made for the stimulus in phase two. We've been through an intensive process where all departments in government were able to bid to participate in the stimulus, and an adjudication process was led by National Treasury, and we have the portfolio of programs here. So next slide. I want to just explain some of the criteria for the stimulus because, it's a unique moment in the sense that the COVID pandemic created a crisis, and in a context of crisis, the need to respond at scale created an opportunity to do things differently. And that's really what we have attempted to do with the employment stimulus, is to find new ways to deliver employment solutions that are meaningful to participants and that create real social value from the work that is undertaken. So the criteria that were set for the stimulus are important. We also, a priority was to take what we've called whole-of-society approaches. We need to reach out and partner with other role players in the society to solve the unemployment challenge. And so part of the criteria, we're looking for meaningful partnerships with non-state actors. The other challenge was designing for scale. The scale of the unemployment problem is huge. We need solutions that are able to respond at meaningful scale. And designing for scale in a short space of time poses real implementation challenges, and we had to rise to them and identify the programs that could do so. Our focus has been very much, as I indicated, on meaningful work opportunities for participants, so that from participation in work, they get the benefit of real work experience. They learn teamwork, they learn time management, they learn collaboration, coordination, accountability, delivery. And all of that prepares them to play a productive role in the wider economy as part of the pathway out of these programs, we hope, into a recovering wider labour market. So a strong focus also on pathways into sustainable earning opportunities, and we really used the opportunity of the stimulus for innovation also. The pressure cooker of the crisis in the wider society because of the pandemic, the need to roll out these programs urgently and at scale, meant that new ways of doing things had to be found. Next slide. This is the full list. The next two slides are the full list of programs. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm going to go through some of the highlights. But I think it's interesting to note that in the second phase, all of the programs with a star next to them are new programs. So the strongest performers in phase one have continued, but phase two also involves a large number of new programs. So we're really trying to push the envelope in terms of quality of outcomes and innovation in the process. So the full list of programs is in the document that has been provided. Next slide. I'm not going to go through these in detail. I'm going to move straight to some of the highlights. So next slide again. So I think, as has already been indicated by other speakers, we are excited that the Basic Education Employment Initiative is back. This program was certainly a highlight of Phase 1 with, as has been said, 320,000 young people employed in schools across the country. We had enormously positive feedback from this program. Over 94% of principals and teachers and participants in surveys all wanted the program to continue. And there was a real sense that at a time in the country when the whole school system was under strain and teachers were under stress from the exigencies of the pandemic, that this program really assisted to keep curriculum outcomes on track. And that's what we want to see continued in Phase 2. Already, over 900,000 young people have applied to be part of Phase 2 of the program, which will launch on the 1st of November. New in Phase 2 is support to the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention in terms of direct support to programs, which Minister Nxesi did outline. And just to reiterate that in this phase of the employment stimulus is directly supporting a number of PYEI programs, but the whole stimulus supports the agenda of youth employment. So the Pathway Management Network, the National Youth Service, a pay-for-performance model for digital skills, and a Youth Enterprise Fund have all been spoken about. We are excited also to announce what is called a Social Employment Fund. This is a new program, and it's part of the Social and Solidarity Economy strategy supported by the DTIC, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. The fund management will be by the Industrial Development Corporation, and this will support non-state actors to create 50,000 jobs. Now, the term social employment is new, but it reflects an existing reality, which is that a large number of organizations in the wider society are already working in communities and creating work to address social challenges and social needs. And we see this as an important opportunity to partner, to scale up this work, to support work for the common good. As the President put it last year, we're working on the premise that there's no shortage of work to be done to address the many social problems in our society. The aim is to support the considerable creativity, initiative, and institutional capabilities that exist in the wider society to engage people in work that serves the common good. What do we mean by work that serves the common good? Next slide. What do we mean by work that serves the common good? The term is intentionally broad because the people that are best placed to define that are communities themselves. And the intention is that communities and organizations that are working in communities will identify work that needs to be done at the local level that can really make a difference. Obviously, all public employment supports work for the common good at one level, but here the focus is on the role of non-state actors. And the types of work are broad. So it can include placemaking, it can include community safety, food security and nutrition, urban agriculture initiatives, art, dance and sport in communities, community and public art programming and informal settlement upgrading, and much more. And we hope to see innovation in the forms of work also, because work for the public good as we head towards 4IR, work for the public good also includes work, digital work, public design of public interest websites, social surveys, work that involves digital skills also. Next slide. In Phase 2, we will be building on one of the successful Phase 1 programs in the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. And this program is highlighted partly because of the technical innovation that was involved in the rollout. And it is an example of how we've tried to use the employment stimulus as a kind of innovation sandbox. The task of the department in Phase 1 was to get production input vouchers out to subsistence farmers to help them back into production in a context in which production lines and supply lines and markets had all been disrupted. they opted to use a USSD platform as the application platform. And there was a lot of nervousness about, would this be accessible? Would subsistence farmers be able to access this platform to take advantage of the opportunity of a production input voucher? The reality is that the outcomes exceeded expectations. What we found is that using a digital platform available on function phones, not only on smartphones, but a USSD platform, using that mechanism actually allowed us to deal with issues of spatial inequality in ways that are more effective than traditional methods. So, for example, it is far quicker for a farmer in a remote rural area to apply for a production input voucher and get that voucher on their phone than to have to catch a taxi into the nearest town, join a queue and apply on paper. So in the process, for the very first time, the department was also able to get a geospatial database of all subsistence farmers who applied. We now, for the first time, have a spatial database of over 133,000 subsistence farmers with information about the production categories that they are involved in. This provides a really important platform for layering further support so that we're able to create pathways out of poverty for subsistence farmers, create access to markets, create linkages that can improve their returns from effort. And this program is continuing in phase 2. Next slide. It seems to have moved off. It's not moving on my side here.
I guess it's in your system, you can proceed.
Sorry. Seems to have gone off slideshow. There we go. Thank you. So I'm now on the slide, Innovation in Public Employment in the Metros. Another new program and a large-scale program also is support to innovation in public employment in the metros. This program is being rolled out through the Neighbourhood Development Partnership Program in National Treasury, and all the metros have been invited to submit bids, and we've really asked the metros to innovate in the type of employment that is created to ensure, again, that it is meaningful work that creates meaningful social value, and to think innovatively about how to use public employment as an instrument to meet wider social, environmental and developmental goals. And the cities have really come to the party in this regard, and right now a range of proposals are in final adjudication. This includes things like support to homeless people through participation in public employment. It includes support to food security and nutrition programs through urban agriculture. It supports precinct management, often in partnership with the private sector. There's an exciting program to digitize public records, city records, in partnership with the sector, in partnership with the private sector, so that the participants, young people, will participate, they'll be trained on the digitization of city records, and their skills will be brought to a level where they can be readily absorbed into the private sector, and this is a partnership with the private sector. We're seeing innovation in waste recycling in a number of the cities, improvements to informal trader spaces, public art and placemaking, and a great deal more innovation. So watch this space. Interesting work will be happening in the cities. Some other examples of new programs, very briefly, there are new models for waste recycling being tested in 25 municipalities by Kochta. There are environmental programs, these continue from phase 1, but what is new is that the Department of Tourism is also part of the portfolio and will be supporting activities at tourism sites. We have support for graduate employment because graduates also need to be assisted into the labour market, even though they face less of a challenge than other cohorts. Nevertheless, we do also have a problem of graduate unemployment. And so in partnership with the Department of Higher Education and Training, we will be placing 3,000 graduates in universities in work that uses their professional skills, so as part of skilling them for the wider labour market. And then there is also a program with the Department of Communication and Digital Technology to establish what has been called a broadband access fund. This will support connectivity for 50,000 households, but its main purpose, again, is to experiment and innovate in what is the best, most effective, most efficient way of getting broadband to households that don't have access at the moment, because this is such a critical enabling factor for access to employment and access to economic opportunities in the wider economy. So these are some highlights from Phase 2. This is not all of the programs. We have provided a publication which provides detail on all of the programs in the list, but I hope that what you can see is that there is real energy and commitment from a range of departments across government and across different spheres of government, indeed, to support the employment challenge. We hope in Phase 2 to break new ground again, as we did in Phase 1, in cracking solutions to the unemployment challenge and providing really meaningful opportunities for participants in a context in which the wider economy is still recovering. And we hope that through this, what we will see is not only opportunities for the individuals, but an economic stimulus into local economies through the money that is spent by people who participate. So that money is primarily spent in the informal sector, in local small enterprises, and this acts as a vital stimulus to local economies across the country. We hope that you will investigate all these programs further and also speak to participants to hear the kinds of testimonies that we have been hearing from the ground. Because everywhere we go, and we couldn't fit over 500,000 of these testimonies on the screen, but the fact of the matter is that wherever we go, what we hear from participants is the kind of feedback that is reflected here, where this program is making a meaningful difference in the lives of many South Africans, their households, and their communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. I'm sure you must have observed the passion and elaboration of the common good, giving name to different interventions. Is it elimination of alien species? Is it restoration of non-functional rivers? Bringing life to roads that are no longer functioning, adding bridges where they are required. Getting new skills and becoming better employable than you were before this program. And the fact that 12 billion is what has been spent and 11 billion going forward is just a commitment by the president to actually acknowledge that the biggest enemy of this country is unemployment. Whilst the economy is on the recovery path and the government is actually putting they're putting the shoulder on the wheel of a recovery. We got good news yesterday, upward revision of the economic growth. We believe that infrastructure interventions do, to a certain extent, are beginning to indicate projections of how this country is going to perform. We are very hopeful. One interesting thing, ladies and gentlemen, up to this point, so much money has been spent. We have not smelled a whiff of scandal. That's what excites us, and that's what delights the president, by the way, when I spoke to him about this. Now, even the choice of approach, using the already existing institutions, taking advantage of the systems that are already in place, and so on, it makes it a participatory program in the manner Kate articulated. Kate has been doing this all her life. I usually call her a mine worker. She used to do the same thing for NUM. For many years in the 80s, she's been living a life of intervening in the development of the disadvantaged. It's your turn, ladies and gentlemen, to raise questions. so that we can be able to deal with them. Thank you very much for listening. That's nice. Means it's very clear. It's very clear.
Except for one comment
I see
from...
a hand there. Okay. Except
Except for one comment from Rahina on our Zoom platform, who says, well done to the PMO team. We need so much more of this.
I thought it would be inspiring to the media when we are reporting positive news like this. And engage more. I'm looking around. Going. We've circulated the information, am I right?
Yes.
I think let's appreciate that the presentations have been very clear. At that point in time, thank everyone for attendance, and then hope to engage you on an ongoing basis. I'm sure Nxesi will facilitate if there's a need for individual what to call interviews by the relevant ministers, even technical people. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And we adjourn. Thank you.